I guess we're back. Welcome to the podcast, the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I'm your host, Greg Heitmann, and today is Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. And we got chapter 37 today, which is called The Sun. S-O-N, in this case, the sun. And a little background before we kick into the podcast, the usual background spiel that I give, and the whole reason for doing the podcast in the first place, which has taken me many different directions besides the memoir itself, which is the spine of the podcast is the memoir, The Colonel and the Kid. The Colonel being my grandfather, Edwin P. Hagen Jr., and the kid being me, Greg Heitmann. So that's the spine of the podcast. It's dedicated to the memory of my grandfather, the Colonel, or as I knew him, Grandpa. And we branch out from there. We have different segments. We have recurring segments, stuff that I'm just making up. Most of the time I'm not making stuff up. I'm making segments up to add to the podcast. Have look what I found, music update, sports headlines, NFL updates, games of the week. No NFL games going on right now, but that when I started the podcast, that was kind of one of the main things. It was probably equal to the actual memoir at the time. The first time getting the podcast rolling, we were very heavy on the NFL and me picking my games and monitoring my success or failure. So that was pretty interesting. I don't know if we ever did a good summary of how I came out with my picks for the year. Probably around 66%, which is 2 out of 3. Probably could have made some money, but again, I encourage everyone. I discourage people from gambling. I encourage people not to gamble. Whatever you want to say. That's another segment I have. Verbal abuse. So right there, we were caught up in a little early verbal abuse scandal to start with. I encourage people not to gamble. That's a complex way of saying I discourage people from gambling. Discourage instead of encourage. It's an interesting way to consider language, I guess. And I know I'm getting distracted, but I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. As part of the whole podcast itself is that it's there's some psychology involved in this, in the memoir writing and in producing the video and audio podcast. And for me, a lot of the writing was psychotherapy, if you want to call it that, or just therapy in general, not just psychological, physical therapy, I think too, because making a person sit there and just stay seated and concentrating on finishing writing, whether it's a page, a chapter, whatever it was you're writing for that day. And that's one of the things that I've lost now. It seems like I just cannot have, I don't have the discipline that I used to, I guess, as far as even just sitting there concentrating on doing something. And I'm searching for it. I'm looking for it and trying to get it back. But I think part of it is maybe I just don't have the ideas I used to have before, or I don't like my ideas enough that I really want to concentrate on them and finish them and just complete them. Right now, my own psychology that I'm working with is trying to finish this, which is the memoir and the partnering podcast, the audio and video podcast that goes with it, to try to get those into some sort of permanent record. At least that's what I'm calling it, permanent record. And I think that's a weird phrase. Your permanent record. I can remember that phrase being thrown around when you're a student in school. Oh, this is going to go on your permanent record, like your bad behavior or bad grades or something like that. It's going to affect the rest of your life. It's like, oh, If if only we knew how incredibly silly that was. If you were a child that got threatened with that, or even as an adult threatening child with that, how cruel that is, really, to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off on that. Maybe that's needed when you're a child, some sort of fear put in you so that you can focus and get your discipline. That's what I'm lacking now, is my own discipline to be able to sit here and finish up some of the writing I need to finish up or want to finish up. I'm just lacking for whatever reason. So that's a long introduction into the podcast, but here we are. So we're ready for chapter 37, the sun, and we'll just jump in. Ready to go here? From the Colonel and the Kid memoir, chapter 36 or 30. I think this is 37. I don't know. I think I have a typo to start this chapter right away. Pretty sure I'm calling this chapter 37. But yeah, this is chapter 37 as far as that goes. But of course, I have it written incorrectly, and I'm stumbling. Um, I blame myself for my failure to have the concentration to be able to do this, because it seems like that's, like I said, I'm struggling to do that and get things straightened out. But I am working, and I think maybe this is more a result of the work that I've done to actually modify and clean up some of these chapters I'm working on now, because I've had to renumber them. I added a chapter in the middle of some of these, in the mid 30s section of the chapter, and so that's where this error comes from. I like to be able to document that. That's kind of weird, a weird thing that happened. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes I've had so far that I've caught during the actual podcast. I'm glad I caught it, because it's already confusing enough. But what we're shooting for, before we actually get this chapter read into the record, I think what I'm trying to do is I'm going to get through chapter 40 recorded and put together, and then I'm going to put that, I'm going to compile those chapters, and I put that up into Kindle and actually publish it just on the Kindle version of the memoir, which will be volume 2, chapters 21 through 40. And then I have to finish chapters 41 through 60. So there'll be 3 volumes, 20 chapters each, 60 chapters total. And we'll have those in the record eventually, I think by the end of this year. Before the end of this year, I'm pretty sure I'll have all that done. And I think that'll be a pretty good feeling for me to have that completion, that milestone reached of getting those chapters completed, and this podcast well underway, because that'll probably mostly wrap up the memoir part of the podcast. I think I'm still going to call it the Colonel and the Kid, and go back. The plan is, my vision for the podcast will be to go back and start over with the chapters, not to read them into the record again, but just talk about them from a standpoint of having them in the record and absorbing more of the information, and then the lesson that I feel goes along with that was imparted by my grandfather, either implied or directly stated. So that's how I envision the podcast going forward after I've completed the 60 chapters, and we'll see what goes on from there. I do have probably more memoir stuff, probably less associated with my grandfather, but more memoir stuff, just personal things for myself, hunting and career, creative stuff that I want to talk about and put into the record. So That's the vision for the future. And again, sidetracked. Sidetracked 10 minutes later, we're going to get the chapter read into the record. Okay, so this is the Colonel and the Kid memoir, chapter 37, The Sun. And as always, we start with a quote. Quote, "Great men are not born, but molded by their fathers and their fathers before them." End quote. And that quote is unknown. So another one of the quotes that I've had struck upon, and it has no attribution to anybody in particular, but it's I thought it was a good one. Came across that with for this chapter for the sun, and I think it'll sink in a little more once I start the chapter, and you can get a gist of what this chapter is about and what it means. To the chapter. I got the call on January 1st, 2021, about 11:20 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I was out for a walk, just heading home, a couple blocks away from my house. Grady was on the line of my cell phone. "I have some bad news. Dad passed away." "Really?" I replied. I was in complete denial, not understanding the words. This was supposed to be a new year, a fresh start from the hellish 2020 that had gripped the world in misery with the pandemic. But no, here I was with my head spinning from the news. "I'll be there as soon as I can." I heard the words from my mouth. It was an out-of-body experience. My father's death came with minimal warning, and it is still surreal to me almost a month later as I resume writing this memoir. You question your priorities when death strikes close to home. Things don't go back to normal. There's a new normal. Any normal for me includes getting back to my mission of recording my grandpa's impact on my life. This is a document I want to share with my family, especially my mom. There is a running clock. There was a passing thought that I would never finish this homage to Grandpa. That idea quickly evaporated. I especially want my mom to know how important Grandpa was to me. At the same time, there is an unspoken conflict. Doesn't my glowing praise of my grandpa diminish my dad's role? I'll be as blunt as I can. No. Whatever influence Grandpa had on my life, my dad's impact was tenfold. That is just the way it is. For me, anyway. Grandparents get the glory. Parents do the dirty work of raising the kids. Gary Heitmann, my dad, was the son Ed Hagen Jr. never had. They were friends for almost 50 years. They hunted pheasants together many, many times. During the down years of pheasant numbers in the northeast part of the state, they traveled to south central South Dakota for a guy's getaway with some other men to shoot roosters and blow off steam. And here we have the first photograph of the chapter. And I'll read the caption, then describe. The caption reads, "Grandpa stands behind my dad as they pose for a post-pheasant hunt photo in Falk County in October 1996. So I'll try to describe this photo a little bit. And it's a photo that's cropped. It was a whole, I'm pretty sure I took this photo with the 35 millimeter camera that I had basically co-opted from my dad at some point. And this is a photo of the whole group with all the roosters laid out in the back on the tailgate of the truck, Grady's truck. And my dad is kneeling down, leaning with his elbow on the tailgate, and directly behind my dad is Grandpa, the Colonel, Ed Hagen Jr., and they're both looking at the camera, and my dad's kind of looking. They're kind of, they're facing to the west, and the sun's getting ready to go down. It's still probably late afternoon, so the sun's kind of in their eyes a little bit, and they both have their bulb caps pulled down a little bit, and their eyes are shaded, but so it's kind of I think a little bit harder to see from the way the picture's being taken. My grandpa's standing there with his elbow on the rail of the bed of the truck, and behind him, the passenger door is open. And my dad's got a red flannel shirt on and his hunting pants, brown hunting pants with some brush protection for walking through all the weeds and stuff. And grandpa behind him, I think he's just got blue jeans on and kind of like a reddish zip up hooded sweatshirt. And my dad's got like a white baseball cap and grandpa's got like a blaze orange baseball cap. And just to the left of my my dad's well, to to my dad's left, by his right elbow, you can see a couple of nice roosters laid out in the back of the truck there, and it's just in the middle of this grassland out there in Falk County. I think it was a South Dakota public easement that was granted for a walk-in area. I think it was all public hunting allowed in this area where we were, and you can see some really nice tall grass in the background. And we're parked on, I guess, probably just a trail, two-rut trail in the area. And you can barely catch a glimpse of, I think, the top of a fence post. It's like a silver fence post with a small portion of the top painted red so you can see it. And the grass is so nice and tall, really good. It's been good weather that year for growing, good growing season. Anyway, that's the first picture, the chapter. But back to the text. Grandpa got Dad started on golf. What a treasure that turned out to be. If there was a hobby that Dad loved, it was golf. Grown to open a golf course about the time my dad retired, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that my dad might be the most prolific golfer to have played Olive Grove Golf Course, just for the sheer number of holes he played. And then we have the second photo of the chapter, and this is a photo. I'll read the caption and then describe a little bit here. And the caption reads, "My dad tees off on the first hole of Olive Grove Golf Course in Groton, South Dakota, circa 1995. I would venture to say that golf was one of my dad's top 5 favorite things in the world." And so the picture, I think I had some pictures of this golf outing earlier in the memoir, but this one particular photograph, it's from the first tee box there, looking out towards most of the golf course, and it's really an overcast, cloudy day, low hanging clouds. Looks like it could be just raining any second. And my dad's wearing a white sweatshirt and blue jeans and golf shoes, and it's an action photo where he's taking the drive and he's just made contact with the ball. Looks like he's using an orange golf ball because it's just this blur going up into the air. And you can really see the namesake Russian olive trees for the Olive Grove Golf Course there in Groton. It looks good. Everything's very green and lush. Course looks like it's in real good shape. Very appropriate picture for this chapter. Back to the chapter. My favorite father-in-law, son-in-law stereotypical joke involved the ladder that Grandpa owed my dad. My mom and dad eloped. No big, expensive wedding for father of the bride to pay for. Every so often, the reference to the ladder might come up in casual conversation as Mom tells the story. Dad graduated from South Dakota State University, and the next day, they eloped. Over to Minnesota, Gary and Carolee traveled to tie the knot with just a couple of friends as witnesses. When my mom called her parents to inform them, the response from my grandma and grandpa still gives me a chuckle. "Hi, Mom," Carolee replied through the phone upon hearing Grandma answer the phone. "Where are you? It's late," Grandma gruffly responded. "Gary and I eloped. We got married," Carolee continued. "You did not. You get home right now," Grandma ordered. And we have the pictures, wedding pictures of my mom and dad, and I'll read the caption and describe the two pictures. Photos of my mom and dad, Carolee and Gary, on their wedding day, June 4th, 1963. And I hope that's the correct date because I'm pretty sure it's June 4th, but I think I have a typo on this photo. I think June 3rd is actually, I think it's AJ's birthday, my nephew, Garrett's son. And I think June 4th is actually their wedding day, June 4th, 1963. So hopefully I get that figured out. But to describe the photos a little bit, the photo one, there's two photos that I have for this memoir. First photo is my mom and dad, and they just look so so young. It's fascinating to see these photos. 1963 photo. It's, you know, 63 years ago now. And my mom, the color photos, so that's really cool to have. And my mom's wearing a pink dress, and she's got big corsage, white and pink corsage. And my dad's got a black suit with a black tie, white shirt, and a white flower in on his lapel there. Boutonniere, is that what they call that? I think I can't remember, but it's striking to me how much my dad looks like my younger brother Garrett in these photos. I just with a short haircut because Garrett was in the military for all those years and he always had short haircut, and my dad has a crew cut in these photos, and it's just very striking to me how much resemblance there is to my younger brother. But so in the first photo, they're looks like they're holding a knife, going to cut their wedding cake together. And then the other photo that's there, it's a full photo of them standing together after the wedding or before the wedding, I don't know. And just just up against the wall in the church or whatever it was, in the dining hall of the attached to the church where they had the reception. And my mom's standing there in her pink dress and white heels, and my dad's in his black suit, black pants, black suit coat, black tie with a white collared shirt, standing there. And in this picture, my mom's not looking at the camera. She's looking a little bit to the left side of the photo. And my dad's looking at the camera, but it's a nice, clear photo, nice wedding photo for them. So glad to be able to share those photos and get back to the chapter here. Still funny all these years later. Parents never stop trying to protect their children, and grandparents never stop spoiling grandchildren, much to the chagrin of the parents squeezed on both sides of the equation. And I add parenthetically here about the ladder. Maybe some people don't understand that. Maybe that's kind of an older thing where the ladder was a symbol of eloping, where a man could get a ladder and bring it to his fiance's house and have her climb down out the window of the 2-story house, and that's the ladder was tied forever to eloping and getting married with, kind of on the sly, I guess, not having a big ceremony and a big to do, but you just kind of do it under the radar and under the noses of the parents, I guess, so to speak, to secretly get married. So that's the story of the ladder, the joke about the ladder that would come up where my grandpa owed my dad a ladder because of the elopement, saving my grandpa a bunch of money from having to pay for a big wedding for the daughter. Anyway, but back to the chapter. Maybe Grandpa was initially upset with my dad for stealing his daughter away, but Grandpa never held a grudge. My dad and my grandpa were friends. Both had grown up with farm background, so they had a lot in common to begin with. Both men had military service. And then there were the sports. I would say a binding tie for my whole family is sports and our teams. Dad and Grandpa had the same favorite teams, so it was an easy conversation starter. How about those Vikings? Or how about those Twins? Sometimes it was a smile and an aggressive nod. Most of the time it was a shake of the head, a rolling of the eyes, and a shrug of the shoulders regarding the standings of the teams. There's always next year. Of course, there were the high school sports, particularly boys basketball, to discuss, as previously noted. I can only imagine the stories that Dad and Grandpa didn't share regarding the State B boys basketball tournament and the bar hopping gambling they did. I am personally unaware of any harsh words Dad and Grandpa exchanged. Dad and Grandpa also had their hunting together, particularly hunting for pheasants. I don't have enough photos of the old days to feel fully satisfied with that record and its completion. It is quite the contrast to today's society where a cell phone can snap a photo or 1,000 photos at the drop of a hat and preserve the moment forever. We are saturating our storage capabilities with all the photos we take. I note that we are also losing the moment and losing the enjoyment of living in that moment with our anxiousness to preserve it with photos and videos available to record everything right at our fingertips. The photos of bygone days are that much more treasured in my eye. They are rare and special relative to these times. And I have a final photo for the chapter, and I'll read the caption here and then try to describe. My dad and grandpa relaxed during Christmas, circa 1975. My dad was 38 years old, and my grandpa would have been 56 years old at this time. And this is a photo just in the old Spruce Street house, 505 Spruce Street in Siston, South Dakota. And grandpa is in a recliner, like a lazy boy there, and with his feet up in the near ground, and grandpa's relaxing there, and he's got a magazine opened up, and my dad is kind of just in looks like a dining room chair sitting kind of behind him. And they're both looking at the camera, kind of a little bit surprised expression. Someone's taking their picture, I guess, and not sure who took it, but very thankful that they captured this photo of my dad and my grandfather. It just, I guess sitting there having a conversation. I don't think there was a TV in that room, so they're just sitting there, just, I guess, passing some time. Maybe it was, maybe it was waiting for Christmas presents to be passed out and opened up, but I don't know. My grandpa's wearing that, I think that's the vest he was wearing in an earlier photo I had described, I think when he was up in Belcourt. And he's got blue jeans and gray socks. He's got like a white long sleeve collared shirt, a long, like a rugby shirt, I guess you'd call it. It's a long sleeve polo shirt. My dad's got a button up, like pearl snap Western short sleeve shirt. And I say it's Christmas time because I think there's behind them is a wreath. And if I remember correctly, I'm going back, I'm digging down deep, and maybe my mom can attest to this or correct me, but in on the wall, or maybe it's hanging from the chain for the light, there's a wreath, and I'm pretty sure that wreath is made from a hanger, like a wire metal hanger that's been straightened into an oval, and then the wreath part, instead of like greenery, it's actually just the old green garbage bags that was cut into strips and then tied to the wire hanger, and it looks like an evergreen, or it's greenish like a wreath would be, and then they've added a couple of red blotches on there. But I think my mom made a whole bunch of those when we were in Belk. I'm pretty sure we lived in, well, I think it was Rolla, actually, Rolla, North Dakota. And that was the thing for that year. It must have come out maybe in some magazine or something that you could make these decorative wreaths. And I remember I helped. I think it was child labor, and my mom wanted them for gifts for people, and I had to help make them. And I remember trying to cut these plastic garbage bags into the strips. And it was hard to cut them because that plastic would not, it was just very difficult to cut for whatever reason. And then I remember tying tons of those little strips. They were just knotted on there. You just do like a little double knot. onto those wire hangers, and it took a ton of them to fill up the whole hanger. So I want to know. I want my mom to be able to correct me if I'm wrong or tell me about. Maybe she doesn't remember either, but I'm pretty sure that's one of those green garbage bags wreaths that we made. I helped make at that holiday season in 1975. I guess I'd have been about 6 years old. It probably sounds about right, and probably wasn't the most dexterous of a of an age to be able to cut plastic like that and then be able to tie things together. And I can just remember the tedium and this how tedious it was and the slow going, but it'd be slowly but surely you'd fill up that whole thing and make it you could fluff it out and oh yeah, child labor. I had to earn my keep, I guess, and maybe I was a good enough boy to get some gifts that year. And then I wanted to comment on the caption here too because it's coincidental that from the photo that I said it's circa 1975, which would my dad would have been 38 at that time, and my grandpa would have been 56, and I'm 57 now. It's so strange. It's almost haunting to think that okay, at that time, grandpa was as old as I am now. It's so weird. It's so just weird to me to think about that. So, because I was in 1975, I was 6 years old. So we're talking 50, let's say just to call it an even 50 years. 50 years has gone by. And I have this weird mixed feelings about how long ago that seems, but at the same time, I can picture some of the events as clear as day. And and while I while I say that I picture the events as clear as day, I end up questioning everything of of my recall on these things and my memory is like, is this stuff that I'm writing and talking about, is it true? I mean, is it real? Or am I just embellishing a lot of stuff or do I have false memories of it? I don't think I do. I think it's all correct or mostly correct. Mostly. I would say more than 90th percentile, 95%. But if someone brought evidence to me and say, "No, you're totally wrong. You screwed that all up," I would say, I'm not surprised. Guilty as charged, if that's a thing. I mean, guilty of what crime in this case? Anyway, I just thought that was a good coincidence to point out about the age of my grandfather. And I'd be curious to to I guess to know what people think about, okay, if they saw this picture of my grandpa, say, "How old do you think he was at this time?" Because in my mind, or my mind's eye and what I envision of him, he looks older than that. He looks like he's gotta be in his mid-60s, mid to late 60s, but I don't know, I guess when he hit that age, he sort of looked the same to me. I guess my whole life when I was a kid, and I see that he doesn't have all white hair in this photo, and it seems weird to me that's because I just my in my mind's eye, he always had white or silver hair, and here he's got clearly it's brown hair mostly, it's I mean, there's some gray coming in the sides and stuff, but I don't know. He seems older to me than what 56 years old should be at the time. Hopefully, I've done the math right, but double check that. And I say I'll double check that, but it seems like I never do. It's so funny. Anyway, let's finish off the chapter and get this finished up and put officially in the record. So, back to the chapter. Sometimes it just hits me out of the blue that we are all mere mortals and time marches on. Two great men, my dad, Gary Heitmann, and my grandfather, Edwin Hagen Jr., exemplary role models for me, are gone now. The torch has been officially passed. And that's it. That's the end of the chapter. And as always, got to end the chapter with a quote. And this is a real good quote. Came to appreciate this more and more. And I appreciate it. I continue to appreciate it more and more. And the quote is, quote, "The older I get, the smarter my father seems to get," end quote. And that's from Tim Russert, who was NBC News host of Meet the Press for many years. He died suddenly and unexpectedly of a heart attack, fairly young. I don't know if he was even 60, maybe his early 60s, and passed away while still the host of that. And I don't think they ever did find a decent replacement host for that show. And that show just pretty much totally collapsed, I think, as far as viewership after Tim Russert left. But the message there is so appropriate of how at least as a boy and a man, how you go through the phase of just not what do I say, underestimating your father's knowledge or whatever, however you want to say it. That I guess I think it's a rite of passage. You disbelieve your dad, and you don't think they know anything because you know everything because you're young and so smart. But then the older you get, you realize, oh, I guess maybe he did know stuff. He tried to tell me, which is which is my leap back to the idea that we can't learn anything except the hard way. It seems like we can never be told something. We have to learn about it the hard way. Learn the hard lesson, as they say, with hands-on training of being wrong, because we just are in denial of our of our abilities. I don't know, maybe it's not denial of our inability. It's the belief that that we are so smart, the overestimation of our ability. That's what it comes down to. And we just don't know. I mean, that's throughout people's lives, I think, too, that we don't know what we don't know. That sums it up basically. Anyway, Tim Russert. And I think Tim Russert wrote a book, a tribute. I don't know, maybe it was a tribute book, but just a book about his father. It's called Big Russ, I think, because his dad was there. They grew up in Buffalo, New York, big Buffalo Bills fans, and Tim Russert's son, I think he ended up being on NBC News for a while, and I think his mom was like a Hollywood screenwriter or author or something. She was in the entertainment business, so I think he had plenty of money, so he didn't need to really work. But I think it really affected him when his father passed away so young, Luke Russert. So that's a good. I do enjoy that story of Tim Russert's blue collar background and being working in politics, the political news part of it, and his quality. I guess just persona that we don't have anymore in the news business at all. It's just lost. But anyway, that's the end of the chapter. Chapter 37, The Sun. All right. I'm glad that's in the books, in the record. That's maybe a little melancholy chapter, a little sadness, but think of what the next chapter is going to be. This was 37, 38. Oh, 38. I think I don't have it edited. I got the comments back. 38's a good chapter. A lot lighter message than this chapter 37 here about my dad and my grandpa. Look forward to that next week. I think we'll get that podcast into the record and a little more lighthearted fare for that one. So, all right. There you go, people that drop off after the chapters in the record. You're free to go. And we can get to the recurring segments. 40 minutes in. So we're doing good. We're doing good. Got some good extra stuff today. And we're going to start with corrections. We already had the major correction with the error in the chapter labeling. This is also a mislabeled chapter. The podcast was mislabeled as chapter 18. And it was actually chapter 36, which was the daughters. So chapter 36 was the daughters, and chapter 37 is the son. So we got that correction. I think I got that corrected in the on the computer and in the podcast realm when you look at it and see it now. I think it's correct. I'll have to check the YouTube video on that one to see if I had that mislabeled also. So if that was mislabeled, I'll get that corrected too and get back on track with the chapters. And after today is put up on the broadcast, it'll be chapter 37. So we'll have 3 chapters left, 38, 39, and 40. And then we'll be through volume 1 and volume 2 of the memoir. And I might take a little bit of a break before we get the final 3rd volume up. I say the final original 3rd volume. That'll be the original completion of the memoir. And we possibly might add some more chapters later, but I think that'll probably be a good stopping point. Chapter 60. So anyway, that's the correction going for that, and a little bit of the glimpse of the future of the memoir and the podcast. Looking forward to getting that chapter 40 done and getting that uploaded, and people would see all the photographs in a group together in one little place, not have to watch the whole YouTube video podcast to see the photos. Anyway, moving on. Let's grab the book. Here we are. Let's do some advertising. I think we're good here, but move that over. See if we can see that. There you go. Holding up the Teener Baseball book for those of you not watching the podcast. And over there's the poster. And over here's my hat I'm wearing. There's the O'Farrell top of the hat box, and I get the hat out to wear. Then I put the hat box up there for O'Farrell Hat Company here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. An unsolicited advertisement. I wonder if they would sponsor me. I should ask them if they could give me another hat. If they would do it. And I would say, I'll mention you on my podcast. Probably not. I don't think I'm that good a salesman. I need to have a lot more salesman training so I can sell more books and then sell ad space on the podcast. Who knows? Maybe it'll take off someday. It'll be. I still hold out hopes. This would be. I think this might actually have the most commercial appeal for any of the things I've written, as far as any movie or. I mean, I guess maybe this could be an animated movie too. I could do that. That's what I always thinking. I think I mentioned that before, that I could picture this whole memoir as an animated series, and then even the other books I've written. I don't know. There might be some commercial appeal to those. So if you are somebody that's in the business and you want to make these into a movie, let's talk. Give you a really good deal, really good price. for the intellectual property associated with it. We can be partners. So, anyway, Teener Baseball book available, springtime sports update. And this is the beginning of the sports update because we did the Teener Baseball book. I will also mention, I think I'm going to try to do that for each podcast during the summer, during the baseball season. We'll talk about it. I'll give you the update for the Twins record. Twins are 5 wins, 6 losses on the year, which is better. Believe it or not, this is a better record than I imagined they would have. I was thinking if they win, at a 33 and 1/3% rate, that they'd be doing good. But apparently they're doing better than what I thought. So at an almost 500 winning pace, heck, who knows? Maybe they won't be the worst team in the league. But I would bet some money right now they will be in the bottom 5 teams when it comes to the end of the season. That'd be my guess. And that would be my bet. If I was to bet. But we know I discourage betting, discourage gambling, and I think it's a big waste of money. And if you're gambling, you shouldn't do it to try to make a living out of it. I don't know. And I say that mostly because I think a lot of it's fixed. I think that you're already, the odds are stacked against you just from any normal level playing field standpoint. But I think a lot of this stuff is already rigged for certain outcomes, for certain profit margins, for advertising, again, for TV rights, whatever you want to call it. It's about the money. It's not about the competition, whatever sport it is, including the continuing sports headline update of the NCAA college basketball tournaments, the college championships. So Michigan Wolverines won the men's basketball championship for the NCAA, and UCLA is the champion for the women's basketball this year. And interestingly enough, in this case, the stats that I heard were it was the first Big Ten men's basketball championship since the year 2000, and the first championship for Michigan in 37 years. So a long time. But then if you look at the UCLA women's basketball team, they'd never been to the Final Four in the modern times since, let's say, like 1977. And it was their first ever championship for UCLA women, as opposed to the UCLA men's basketball, which won, I don't know, they've won 13 or 14 championships. I think it's the most by far out of any other college out there for the men's basketball. So it's really interesting. It's interesting March Madness tournament. I enjoyed it pretty much for the most part, probably more than I have in a few years. I think there was some decent basketball overall, but I did hear a comment on the women's Final Four, some basketball writer. I won't say his name because I think people would attack him for saying something about women's basketball because, if you're a man, then you're automatically discredited because you're a sexist if you say anything negative about women's basketball. But he said the women's Final Four and championship game set women's basketball back 50 years because it was such terrible basketball and just completely non-competitive. UCLA beat South Carolina in the women's championship by 30 or something like that. It wasn't even close. I think it was 30 points at halftime, and it was just like basically, okay, let's just get the game over with after halftime. So I don't know. I don't want to be negative about that, but that's just kind of a commentary to me. I didn't say that. I'm just reporting what I heard about that in pretty much an objective manner in my mind, I guess, about the play. And the men's championship too was terrible shooting. They just couldn't. Neither team could shoot the ball very well. I think they shot 30%, in the low 30% for the game for each team, it was very low scoring. I think it ended up being 69-63 final. and just I don't know. I don't know if that's attributed to like they're playing in a football stadium, a big cavernous arena where it's just maybe a little harder to judge distances because you're just not used to the proportions of the building. That'd be an interesting little research project to see what the shooting percentage is in a big dome-like stadium versus arena. Let's say you have one of the most famous championships in the NCAA men's basketball was right here in New Mexico at the pit, they call it, in Albuquerque, and that was North Carolina State upset over Houston Rockets, and that was like 1983, I believe. So think about that. That's like a 20,000 seat arena. It's this beautiful arena. I just love going there to see basketball games because it's very steep and you can see every seat in that building is great. You can just see the floor so well. And I just have no desire to even go to like a NCAA Final Four because they're in a dome. I mean, you can't. You're so far away from the action that it's just why would you even go? I mean, you're going to watch it probably on the big screens above the actual floor of the arena. So why would you go to watch it on a screen when you can just sit comfortably in your house, not to deal with the crowds and the parking and all other problems, expense? I don't have that desire. I mean, if they had a championship game at the pit, I might consider trying to go. And for a moment anyway, until probably ticket prices would come out, they'd be like $1,000 a ticket. It's like, no, I'm not doing I'm not doing that. So anyway, moving on a little bit, I do consider this a culture. Um, like the main theme of this podcast in the category when I developed this podcast and put the information in, that's one of the genres. At the top genre, I think, was culture that I put in. And I put in a second level subcategory like sports and can't remember if maybe history. I don't know if that was part of it, but I did want to talk about something that came up. Talked about the women's basketball and this is like a cultural thing too, and I think it's appropriate to talk about. But I found this just more of like a curiosity or like a psychological questioning um, subject that struck me, and this was so this was a topic at our supper table. It's basically like in the women's basketball. You can probably overlay that with some women college sports and women's professional sports. I guess it's women's. I don't know the women's sports that are professional. I guess mostly the WNBA. That's one of the biggest things. So the question at the supper table was, do lesbians gravitate towards basketball, or does playing basketball as a woman tip you towards lesbianism? And this was an outrageous question for some people at the supper table. They just couldn't believe that how could your mind even go there and even talk about this subject? I don't know. I guess maybe I do have a little warped ideas in my head that are more statistical curiosities, I guess, of what goes on and the psychology of I'm not trying to have a negative connotation of homosexuality or anything like that. I'm just wondering about the idea that for especially in women's sports, that I think that's a topic out there that came up with the rise of Caitlin Clark in college basketball and into the WNBA, that it became uh, almost like a political and cultural headline for Caitlin Clark because there were so many people, there's so many negative things, and she was playing basketball and they were just fouling hard fouls and going after her. And there was a lot of commentary about that she was white and she was straight in the WNBA, and it's a league that's dominated by black women and a lot of lesbian women, and so she was contrary to that the the dominant culture that was out there. So I think it's an interesting question to me about how that just in the psychology of sports and group inner dynamics, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I think, the conclusion was that it's probably there's probably no correlation that we're really talking about. It's more sports and in general that you have women that are, quote unquote tomboys when they're growing up gravitate to sports more than, non-tomboys, if you want to call it that. And I think the other conclusion was in the conversation was that, it's funny. There is probably zero conversation about gay men in professional sports. And I'm trying to even think if there's any out baseball players or football players or basketball players. I don't know if that's even a thing, that it's sort of still taboo to be gay in professional sports. And I believe was HBO has a big recurring series now that it features like gay hockey players. I can't remember what the name of the show is. I don't have HBO, so I haven't seen the actual show. But it's like they're on different teams, but then they're like gay lovers or something. So it's very I think it's still kind of a topic that's taboo for the most part. Homosexual males in professional sports. It just is such a, you know, it's not a thing. Let's just say that. And I guess one of the statistics that came out in the WNBA is I think that like around 40% of the league is is homosexual lesbian women playing basketball. And I'm not judging that or saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that that's just the way it is, and that's just what's reported. There might be some underlying. The, the actual statistical number might be higher because that's what's reported. And then, like in NFL football or the NHL hockey and NBA basketball or soccer, I think you would find that it is statistically zero gay men playing those sports. So the, you know, I guess the divergent numbers there, it's still something to I guess consider. I mean, I just statistically, what do they say? It's like 10% of the population is gay. Maybe it's not that. Maybe that's high. Maybe it's 5%, but still you're still dealing with percentages. So there's probably gay professional athletes out there in the NFL or in basketball or anything like that. But it's still just completely, what's it, closeted men there. So, and this is, I'm not, if it sounds judgmental, it's not meant to be. It's just more of a topic. And again, going back to my idea of curiosity and just the psychology of things of how everything interacts with everything else and how we talk about things and how I guess just even that the taboos that are out there. So maybe I should be treading on this ground. Maybe I'm on thin ice here. I don't know. Probably spent way too much on that topic. But it was an interesting discussion, and I know some people's opinions of it at the dinner table, and I won't disclose any names or talk about other people's opinions or assign them what their opinions were. I think the bottom line of some people like, how could you even think about this? How does this even get into your head? It's like, no, I don't know. I just like to think about different things. So anyway, moving on. Uh, big news. Big news, everyone. I have a big announcement, and it's exciting. This is exciting for me because um, typically the big news I've been talking about is I've been working on projects, my writing project, my latest writing project. That's not it today. The big news is I was out for a walk this morning and I heard a hummingbird fly over. I didn't see it. I didn't make visual contact, but I could recognize the wings, distinct buzzing of a hummingbird flying over. Guess what? April 8th, 2026. It is, they're back. Hummingbirds are back probably a week earlier than usual. Weather's been a little more mild, it seems like. So this is exciting. And before I got the podcast started this afternoon, I boiled some water, got some sugar in it, and we have some nectar made. And I wanted to do that and get that cooling down so that I could set that out after the podcast is done. I wanted to cool off. I have my hummingbird feeder. I'll get that set out. And it's one of my favorite things in the world is the hummingbirds coming in. And I hang the hummingbird feeder just outside my patio door here, and I could see them come in and just know that we're in for the next season of our life, and just enjoy seeing them. They're such a cool and unusual bird, and I enjoy all birds pretty much, but hummingbirds are just fascinating to me. And I never really paid much attention to them until I moved to New Mexico, and the owner of the house, um, I bought the house from the guy. It was for sale by owner, and he left a hummingbird feeder here, and I said, "Oh, I'll try it out." I put it out there on my patio, and next thing I know, and 20 22 years later, still feeding hummingbirds, and I get excited about seeing them come back every spring. It's just it's like a rite of passage. It means spring is officially here as far as the birding season goes, and summer's right around the corner, and it's so cool. It's cool seeing them. And even more, the most exciting part of the hummingbird season is it's probably a tie. When they first come back, the first one you actually see, and then during the peak of the hummingbird migration, like in probably early August and towards mid-August, there can be just so many hummingbirds coming through the area that they just come to the feeders and they're just buzzing around the feeder trying to get their little nectar. They just fight each other, and they're just, crazy. I don't know. I just enjoy that so much. If you don't have a hummingbird feeder, go out and buy one and mix up some nectar, put it out there, and enjoy. You'll love it, I think. I mean, most people that start doing it, they continue to do it and really enjoy it. So there you go. That's the big news. And also, uh, oh yeah, I'm working on Lake Traverse, the Charlie LeBeau mystery number 6. We're making progress. We're working on chapter 8 now, so we got 7 chapters done. 40 chapters. So a couple more, and I'll be a quarter way through the edits of the book. And the book is written. We're just editing now, so that's the other good news. And I got some of those chapters over to Gwyneth, and she's working on those for me. So we're making progress. And so that's a subheading under other big news. So we got big news, hummingbird area, and then big news on the book area. But probably the biggest news, I think, still is the hummingbird. Very exciting. And speaking of birds and flying, I have a music update too, just a quick little update, a quick discussion on something that struck me the other day. And I guess it's been kind of in the back of my mind, but I finally wrote it down and wanted to get to it on the podcast and bring it up and let people talk about it, put it out there in the ether for discussion. And that is fly. I put together a musical list. I haven't written the actual segment about it, but I did put together on my playlist a musical list called The Fly List, but it was inspired by the same title of a song. Well, it's not the exact same title. It's similar titles, two exact and one similar that I was lumping together in the classic rock genre. I just wanted to bring it up and throw it out there for people to discuss. So the the title is called, quote, Learning to Fly, end quote. So there's two songs that are exactly that title, one by Tom Petty, one by Pink Floyd. Totally different musical melodies, everything. There's nothing similar at all other than the title and the use of Learning to Fly lyric in there. And then the Foo Fighters, more of a modern rock band, they have a song Learn to Fly. I mean, absolutely totally different melody and everything from the other two, but I lumped them in there because I always think of them kind of the same thing, Learn to Fly. And Foo Fighters, and many of you probably know this if you're listening to this, you probably already know this, but Foo Fighters are led by Dave Grohl, who was a member of Nirvana. So you have that lineage there of a couple of major, musical powerhouses. Let's say Foo Fighters are very popular by themselves, but Nirvana was hugely popular. Kurt Cobain and Dave Grohl played drums for Nirvana. So you got that hooked into all this stuff. But I did put together the full list of the full musical list of the Fly list, and I'll probably write that up eventually here. I'm not in a big hurry to do that. I have a lot of their lists I can go over. But I just put it together like there's one of the big songs that came to mind that fits into the Fly list, which is, uses the word fly in the title, and that is Fly Me to the Moon, big Frank Sinatra hit song. And I don't know, I think there was like 45 songs I put into my list. I don't remember other ones. There was Fly by Sugar Ray, but most people don't know that song, but Fly Me to the Moon, pretty much everybody knows that one. I think if you have any musical direction that has any diversity of genres, you probably know Fly Me to the Moon and Frank Sinatra. If you don't know Frank Sinatra, you probably don't listen to this podcast, and you probably don't have a diverse musical taste. And that's not a criticism. That's just the way it is, that I think. So anyway, there's a little taste of the Fly list and Learning to Fly. Check those songs out if you don't know them or aren't familiar with them. You help round out your background in music somewhat. That's it for the music update. It's a pretty good update. I thought it was very worthwhile. So I have two other things, and one of them is a recurring segment that I like. I don't know if anybody else likes it, but it's called Look What I Found. Some of you maybe remember that I found this King of Diamonds playing card on the street a while back. And if you're just listening to this, I'm holding up the card that I found. It's a King of Diamonds, and it's the man with the axe, because he's holding an axe. I thought it was a sword right away. I didn't even see the blade on there, the little axe blade. But it's a King of Diamonds, and it's got a red background. And I bring that up because I found that. And so look what I found. And I should look what I found. Put my finger up in the air for those watching. And coincidence would have it that I found this card. It's a blue back card. It's only half of the card. It's very beat up. but it is also the king of diamonds. I don't know. I don't find playing cards very much when I'm out just walking the trail and just getting some exercise and stuff. But for some weird reason, I found a king of diamonds with a red back card, and then the king of diamonds with a blue back card that was ripped in half. That's it. That's all I have for look what I found. I don't know if it's I don't know how to interpret it. Is there a sign that's associated with that? Should I be thinking about doing something? Should I declare myself king of the castle here? I don't know. Casa del Gregorio. I guess in that sense, I'm El Rey, the king. Yeah, I think I've I've totally lost the train of thought on the podcast here. Thanks to this segment. Look what I found. Look what I found. So I guess we're going to probably wrap it up. But I wanted to wrap up with something that was very strange to me, but very interesting. I have to get a drink of water to finish out this last little part because it's too. You got to be prepared. And I'm looking for a topic title, a segment title for this recurring segment. And I thought, this is crazy fascinating to me. So I was going to combine those words into either the topic would be called crazinating or phrasy. So you combine those words to fascinating and crazy combined, you get crazinating or phrasy. So I don't know. Maybe we can take a vote and see which one has better Q rating on that to see which is more likable. But the topic today in this crazy fascinating thing that I don't know. I don't know if people appreciate it. I thought it was interesting, and it's based really on Joe Rogan Experience, which is Joe Rogan's podcast. And Joe Rogan, he's by far and away the top podcaster in the world. Well, in this country at least. I would say the world because I think everyone looks at the United States as something special and follows our lead, and he's the leader in this country as far as podcasting. So he gets, I mean, pretty much anybody that he wants, he can ask them to come on his podcast and talk, and they will. And they usually talk a long time. I don't know if he has any podcasts. I'm sure he does. Most of his most interesting guests, I think, usually go for 2.5 hours, 3 hours on a podcast, it seems like to me. And the topic of the podcast and the reference that I'm going to make here and the suggestion I'm going to give you is based on, it's all coming from Joe Rogan's podcast. And it was a guest that he had on in 2019. And Joe Rogan, talked about this guest coming on, that it was the most viewed podcast that he's ever had. It was in 2019. And it was a guy by the name of Bob Lazar. And it was talking about Area 51 and UFOs and specifically a specific part of Area 51 called S4. And Bob Lazar worked there. And he had this long discussion with Joe Rogan about what he saw there, what he did there, what happened, and talking about UFOs and UFO technology and trying to reverse engineer some of the technology that the well, that America has recovered, and America via the military direction and trying to whatever I guess whatever branch of the military and intelligence this is, they're trying to reverse engineer some of this technology. And it's very interesting. I recommend that's my recommendation is this crazy fascinating topic. So crazinating, that's the name of the topic, I guess, maybe, or phrasy. I don't know. Phrasy is probably more my speed because it's such a new it's a new invented word I just coined, and we'll see if it catches on. But it's very simple. It's just like crazy, but with an F, because you've adopted the F from fascinating. So maybe I might maybe use that word as my incorporation. If I incorporate something, that'll be my company name, be Phrasy. So because it's got the Z in it, Z is always a catchy letter for topics or products, whatever you want to say. It's somehow it just catches the ear just right, that Z sound. So anyway, Joe Rogan had a podcast about that in 2019, remains his most viewed podcast. And then this guy, he brought him back. Joe Rogan brought this guy back, Bob Lazar, to talk about the new movie they're doing. That's sort of it is based on Bob Lazar's story about working on in S4 for under in Area 51 about UFOs. And the movie is called S4, the Bob Lazar story. And I guess it showed up on my Amazon feed. You can purchase it, I think, for like $9 or something. You can rent the movie. And I didn't do it yet, but because I'd listened to the podcast, and it's been probably almost 6 hours listening to both podcasts because I knew that story had come on. The latest one had come on Joe's podcasting notification, and it came up, and he had started talking about this was the most listened to podcast ever. So I stopped it, and then I went and searched for the original one from 2019. I listened to that one first, then I listened to the modern one that talks about making the movie and describing the story again. And it is it is amazing. It's amazing stuff to listen to anyway. And I'm gonna consider renting the movie, and I might just wait till it comes out for free, depending on which site it comes out on. If it's on Amazon, then I get it. I already subscribed to Amazon Prime, so maybe in like a month or two it'll be free for me on there. So we'll see how it goes. But that's my recommendation. S4 colon the Bob Lazar story, and Lazar is Lazar. One of the things that hooked me into this whole story too, talking about Bob Lazar, is that he was actually a physicist and he worked at Los Alamos here, just whatever that is, 40 miles away by vehicle. Probably only 25 miles as the crow flies from where I live right now. But you got to go you can't get there directly either because there's a big ravine in the way. The Rio Grande River's in the way, so you have to got to go north and then go back southeast to follow the river, get up in the mountains where the secret lab Los Alamos was when they were developing, atomic weapons back for World War II. Bob Lazar actually worked there, and he was a physicist working on some stuff, and it's kind of a local story, I guess, to me, that he ended up, I guess he was noticed and documented in the Los Alamos newspaper back in the 1989, late 1980s. He was in his mid 20s, late 20s, and he put a jet engine on his his Honda Civic or whatever it was, Honda Accord, whatever car he had back then. He put a jet engine in it to get to work. That was his car. So he was, kind of a smart guy, capable mechanic and everything. So that's how he got noticed and tapped for this secret project out in the the Area 51, the desert in Nevada, to be working on this stuff. And I won't talk about that's the hook that really got me more interested, saying, "Oh my god, this guy, he's a local." And part of the story when after he came out, and I guess you could call him a whistleblower about this, is they try to delete him out of the records of anything and call him a liar and just a total fraud. So they try to delete him out of the records of Los Alamos. But people confirmed that he actually worked there because they did have hard copy phone directories that were printed during the time. And someone came forward and said, "Hey, this guy's name is in my phone directory from the time. So this is pretty much corroborating his story that he worked at Los Alamos." And, the government was trying to paint him as a liar and a loser and just total fraud. And I don't know. I mean, nothing from the government has ever confirmed any of this stuff that he said. But I don't think they're really denying it either. It's really kind of a weird story. And check out the podcast. Podcasts are free. You can just get the podcasts from the Joe Rogan show, Joe Rogan Experience, I guess, JRE, Joe Rogan Experience. And he does a great job. Joe Rogan is pretty good podcast host, I believe. And it's worth listening to. You get a kick out of it. And you can decide for yourself whether you think it's made up or if it is real. If it is real, man, it's like mind-blowing that we're not alone in this universe. I don't know. I guess maybe I tend to believe it, maybe want to believe that. It's like the X-Files, Fox Mulder. I want to believe. That's it. I think we made it just about hour and a half today, hour 22. So we did a good job. Keep her less than an hour and a half. Got to the 80-minute mark. Now we can just about 90 minutes, between 80 and 90 minutes. I think that's the sweet spot for a podcast. So you can listen to it while you're, I don't know, cooking dinner or washing dishes afterwards. You don't have to have a lot of concentration doing your work, but you can just have something in your ear listening to it, or watch it if you want to just prop up your phone while you're cooking on the windowsill or cupboard. See the pictures that I add to the podcast, or just look at me if you want. Look at me talking. So anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it for today anyway. And to recap, hummingbirds are back. I got to get off this podcast. I should just keep rambling on here in the closeout. I got to get that hummingbird feeder out and make sure those hummingbirds have some food. Their long journey back. So we'll sign off. And as always, just, I've kind of struck it, this little, the routine sign off that I have is the 3 B's, and it's be assertive, be positive, be proactive. I mean, that's taking control of your life. You want to try to control what you can, and you can control these 3 things, be assertive, be positive, be proactive. So the 3 B's is part of the sign off. And with that, I say, the emphasis on you, that you do this stuff and you take action. And as always, I leave you with these words: knock and the door will be open to you. Seek and you will find. Ask and you shall be given. That's it. That's today's podcast. I hope it was as enjoyable for you as it was for me. I really do enjoy sharing these stories, and hoping I can inspire some conversations and topics that you can have with your families and stumble across new ideas and the new potential that's out there. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I'm your host, Greg Heitmann. And, I look forward to talking to you next week. All right. We don't say goodbye. We say, see you later. So tip of the cap to you, and see you next week.